Welcome to Great Companies, Great Leaders. I'm Christine Gannon, and I am your host. I'm the CEO of Brightworks Consulting, and just so honored today to have our guest with us today, Michelle Clare. Michelle, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I can't wait to dive into our conversation today. A little bit of background about Michelle. She's a certified medium. She's an angel intuitive, a spiritual coach, a medical intuitive, energetic healer, intuitive life coach, and three-time near-death experience survivor. She receives messages from loved ones who have crossed over, as well as angels and life guides. And in a span of 11 years, she had three near death experiences. The first was in April of 2000, the second was in May of 2006, and a monumental life changing event in which Michelle suffered a traumatic brain injury on November 1st, 2011. Shortly after this event, she started receiving information from other people, for other people, from their loved ones who had transitioned. And all three near death experiences were a reminder of an unconditional love and connection that surpasses our earthly life. I can't wait for you to tell people a little bit about your journey. How I want to talk about the near death experiences, but I also want to talk about, did you ever think of this as a career, or did this just find you?
I would say overall, it found me. There was never a point in my life where I thought, when I grow up, I'm going to be a medium.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually in my third near death experience where part of the decision to come back was, if you go back, because this is the one I was given a choice to stay in that heavenly realm or come back. And spirit literally said to me, if you go back, you need to practice your mediumship. Even at that point in time, I was not considering it a career. I didn't know how that was going to come about. I just knew that that was part of my deal to come back to earth.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that was the most monumental one for me. They were all very significant in their own way, but in that one, I had a traumatic brain injury and I was actually pulled out of my body. I was up on a ladder, and before I felt it start to shift when I got to the top, and I remember thinking, this is going to hurt. And at that moment, I was pulled out of my body and I was turned around facing it, suspended in the air, and the ladder too. So it was very much like a freeze frame
Wow.
moment. And it was very interesting to me because I knew that I had forever to decide if I wanted to stay or go. And I was in a place with literally no time, complete blissful love, standing with three people that I did not know from this lifetime, but I felt like I knew them. They felt like dear family, dear friends. And it really came down to, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I could see my younger kids in the kitchen. And at that point in time, I decided to stay. And when I made that decision, I was downloaded with quite a bit of information about, okay, but most likely your marriage isn't going to survive this. You're going to need to go back and practice your mediumship. There'll be more trauma. So they gave me a lot of information. I would call it a download. And at that point in time, it was still worth it for me to come back because of the physical trauma that I had to overcome. I ended up falling off the ladder, hit the back of my head, had a 5.5 inch skull fracture, a brain bleed. I lost my equilibrium, my taste, my smell, part of my hearing, all sorts of things. Um, there's a lot of physical trauma that I had to work through for months and months, to get back to functioning semi-normal. And in that time period, I knew I had made the agreement to work on my mediumship, but I actually didn't have the capacity to figure out what that was gonna look like or how I was gonna do that.
And so that was a journey for you to figure out how do I even do that? Where do I start? Or did you know? Did you know where to start?
No, I think it would have been easier. As my life unfolds, like many of us, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we are really spirit led throughout this lifetime. So when I started getting more information from loved ones on the other side for their people here, I went to counseling because I was like, this isn't good. Like, I'm talking to dead people. And and of course, as spirit would have it, they led me to a counselor that said, oh, Michelle, what a gift. We need to get you a mentor. So very often in life, we want to see the whole path. It would bring us comfort. we'd feel like we would know the next step more easily. But really, we're only given one step at a time. And that was no different for me. So it was following the step to this amazing counselor who said, let's find you a mentor, and a mentor who said, you've got a lot we can work with here. And then just really learning how to dive in and hone it.
That is a great segue to my next question, because when you think about people taking on a career of any kind, it really starts with often a mentor and someone giving you guidance, even early on in a career, or if you're making a change in your career or you're seeking guidance for what to do within your career. It really is one step at a time.
Mm.
And mentors are incredibly helpful to that. So I love that story. So when we think about business leaders, because our audience is a lot of different leaders in a lot of different industries, what do you think are some practical ways that they could tap into their intuition or spiritual guidance when there's tough decisions to make? And I think all of us have some level of intuition, right? It's our gut, and we go with our gut. And I always say to my closest friends, it's bittersweet. My gut is bittersweet because you know it's right. And so how can business leaders tap into that?
Right. So spiritually, we actually have three intelligence centers that are very strong in our body: our brain, our heart, and our gut. Most business people, exactly like you said, are running on their gut instincts, right? We all do have that. But to really make a good balanced decision, we also want to check in with what our heart says and what our head says. So we want to incorporate all three of those. It is okay to make a business decision from a place in your heart. Like, let's say you're doing pro bono work, or you're giving things away, or a charity event, or things like this. But it's just that you have to also have the knowledge that I know I am making this heart decision around this business choice, so that it's a heart-centered decision. It's not going to be something that sinks your business, but it's really about the balance and trusting. So here's the other thing: it's good to seek advice from people around us, but we always tend to have the question and the answer within. So, mentors are amazing, but go inside first. At some point, and I find this in life a lot with many of my clients, you're so busy asking 25 different people what they think, or what the right option is, or how do I get here to there, that you're actually missing that the answer is already within.
Okay, I struggle with that one. That's for another conversation.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people do, because I think that is something that a lot of us hear in terms of you have the answer that you need. And maybe we're looking for validation sometimes in terms of here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I know, or
Mhm.
so I
Well,
agree.
yes, and it's amazing to go bounce ideas off people who have more experience than you, or
Yeah.
are in similar fields. Like, I would absolutely say yes, do that. But the problem is we give our power away when we think other people know
Mm.
better than us, right? And from a very young age, at least here in America, we are often taught that everyone does know better than us. Go ask your mom, go ask the teacher,
Oh,
go ask an authority figure in power. And so we've never really been taken to the point where we are honing our own connection and knowing that we know best. And I would actually say, if you look at some of the best business people, the best leaders around the world, on and on and on, they are following their own intuition to get to where they're going.
you're right. You're absolutely right. That is so true. We are conditioned at a really young age that we aren't
Mhm.
the experts, right?
Right, right. And that there are always people who know better for us.
Right.
The government, the church, the on
Right.
and on and on.
The
And so,
teacher, whatever, right.
yes, yeah. So we always are giving our power away. But when you actually look at people that are making a mark on this world and have over time, it wasn't because they followed someone, it was because they followed their own intuition. And by that,
Mhm.
they led others.
Very true. Very true. And that's a great lead in to my next question around techniques. So when you think about, you said not giving your power away. And so in order not to do that, can you talk a little bit about maybe some techniques or practices that leaders can use so that they become more aware and they're more spiritually aware in their approach to leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we talk about meditation all the time, and that is so important. It does not have to be an hour a day, but if you give yourself 10 minutes to sit and be still and be quiet and really tap into the nothingness and the everything all at once, right? Because it's
Mhm.
all right there, all of those answers. You will find that not only are you more calm and present in your life, you're actually going to feel that guidance from spirit on the answers that are really the right answers, not just for you, but for the people that you're leading and the people that you're serving too. So, meditation is huge. The other thing is being open minded. So, the more that I have done this work, what I have found is our human mind likes to say, we have option A or we have option B. The universe says to us, really? Because I see 26 options and you're telling me there's only two.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, where can people start? Let's go back to the two things you shared in terms of meditation. Where could people start? Maybe leaders haven't done it. Maybe they know about it, but they have never tried it. Where would you recommend they start?
Okay, so nowadays it's so easy. You can literally go to YouTube and pull up a 10-minute meditation. You could go for a walk and just focus on being instead of on the phone, taking care of business, answering
Mhm.
emails, or doing all of these other things. It's about giving yourself 10 minutes of no distraction to just sit and connect in the silence. And a lot of times too, there are things like HemiSync and binaural beats which are actually affecting our brain waves. And when we're using those, they help to calm down our brain. I've done many studies, and when I do studies, what we find is that as I'm inner reading, my brain waves are in theta or delta mode. So, delta is the sleep mode, and yet I'm sitting here wide awake, talking, connecting
Wow.
in delta, and sharing the messages. So, we really want to get our brain to a point where we can calm it down to receive the message. Think
Mm.
about this with the universe. I like to compare it to a radio. There are frequencies and stations playing all the time. The AM station is playing right now, but you and I aren't turned into it, which also means the station of abundance, prosperity, successful business, happy life. All of these stations are playing right now. But if we don't quiet our mind and tune into it, we're not going to find that station as easily.
That is so powerful, and it goes back to what you said earlier that the answer is within. So, if we're not tuned in and we're not tuned into these other frequencies, we won't find it and we won't hear it, and it'll be so distracting, right?
Right. We'll be looking elsewhere for our answers. And once again, I love a good mentor. I'm not saying we shouldn't all have those. We should all probably have 5 of those.
Right?
But just really knowing that your answers are within you and the direction and guidance that you need is available to you too.
So, how do you see the future of business leaders evolving in terms of people incorporating some of these principles?
Mhm. Well, what they will find if they start practicing it is that it really makes their business, their company, their employees, everyone becomes more present and on the same page. So it's really also tapping into as humans, we come here to serve. So every business is serving in some way, shape, or form. We are serving humanity. And when we connect to the fact that we are here to serve and we would like to do it for the highest good, it really shifts the energy with employees, offices. It doesn't mean you don't still have to make hard decisions. It doesn't mean you don't have to let people go, or maybe you're not a little financially strapped this year, but you know that this is in alignment with a bigger plan and that we live in a universe of abundance. So there is no shortage. There is enough room for every business to be successful here.
That's so great that you said that.
Well, and that's the other thing I think as we see other people as peers instead of competition,
Mhm.
you're working from a different energy then.
Yeah.
And that shifts everything too. So our perspective is huge in the energy that we bring into the day. It affects our thoughts, which affect our actions. And you know what? And so we really want to focus on that. Is this my competition or is this someone else? And they're doing this and those are great ideas. I can incorporate some of those and then I'm going to add this on and do it better.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Michelle, thank you for being on our podcast today. It's so great. I feel like we need to delve deeper into a lot of these topics because I feel like it could be so helpful for leaders who are just where they're sitting today in their business. How can
Yeah.
people find you?
you can find me at my website, MichelleClare.net.
Perfect. And last question I ask everybody, who is your hero?
Honestly, my dad. My dad is my
Ah!
hero. I watched my dad. My dad was in the Air Force. I watched him serve our country. I watched him take care of my mom for 20 years when she was dying of
Mm,
cancer. I have a sister with severe cerebral palsy. I've just watched my dad really show up and love and support people and be very clear minded and have a great heart. And so
wow.
when you can see somebody that has challenges in life and still shows up every day to be the best they can in this world, it truly inspires you. So once again, we don't have to go look outside into the big world to find someone to inspire us. Look at someone in your life right now. I'm sure there are many of us that have many people who inspire.
And I've met your dad, and he is inspiring. He shines. He shines.
No,
He
thank you.
shines. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Brightworks Consulting hosts this podcast and YouTube channel to spotlight the leadership around the world that is changing lives. Brightworks offers a myriad of consulting services in the public and private sector, to include diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for any size company. You can find us at www.brightworksconsulting.com. We're honored to have Best Companies AZ as a presenting sponsor for this podcast. Best Companies AZ is your #1 source for regional employer branding. You can find them at www.bestcompaniesaz.com.